The night was cold, silent and heavy with the sound of the wind. The small town had already gone to sleep, and only one house at the very edge of the street had its lights still burning. Inside, a man sat quietly, reading an old book. He lived, alone, and nights like these were nothing special for him. But that night would not be ordinary. That night would change his life forever. He was about to put the book aside and rest when a faint noise reached his ears. At first he thought it was the branches moving in the storm. But the sound came again. Soft scratching, like something or someone outside his door. He frowned and stood up, his heart beating faster. The noise grew louder. It was not the wind. It was not the trees. It was a desperate sound. Someone, or something, was at his door. He walked slowly toward it. His house was old, and every step on the wooden floor creaked in the silence. He stopped before the door, listening. For a moment, there was nothing. Only the whistle of the wind. Then came a weak knock. 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 Not strong. Not angry, but trembling. The man hesitated. Who could be out here at this hour in this storm? A thief? A beggar? A lost traveler? Or something else? Finally, with careful hands, he unlocked the door and pulled it open. What he saw froze him in place. A woman collapsed against the doorframe. But she was not like any woman he had ever seen before. Her skin was pale, almost glowing under the dim light. Her hair fell around her face like silver threads, and her eyes, half open, tired, shone with a faint golden light. She was shaking, her lips moving, whispering something he could not understand. Then, before he could ask anything, she fell forward, into his arms. The man stumbled back, catching her weight. She was thin, fragile and cold as ice. He looked down at her strange clothes, torn and dirty, nothing like the clothes of this world. His mind raced. Was this a dream? Was this woman even human? The door was still wide open, and the wind howled louder, pushing against the walls. He could have left her there. He could have placed her outside, locked the door, and gone back to his quiet life. But he didn't. Something inside him, curiosity, pity, maybe something deeper, made him pull her inside and close the door. He carried her to the small couch near the fire. Her breathing was weak, her body trembling. She looked lost, starving, broken. He quickly brought a blanket and covered her. For a long moment, he just watched. Who was she? Where did she come from? Her hand moved slowly, reaching for him. Her lips parted, and in a broken voice she whispered a single word that sounded strange, heavy and foreign. It was not English. It was not any language he knew, but her eyes, those golden eyes, looked at him with fear, pain, and something like hope. He felt a chill run down his spine. This was no ordinary woman. Suddenly the lights flickered in the house. The wind outside grew stronger, almost unnatural. For a second he thought he saw a faint glow pass across the sky, like distant lightning, but too slow, too silent. The woman gasped, clutching at his arm. She whispered again, her voice urgent, desperate. Though he could not understand the words, he leaned closer, trying to hear. Her language was alien, yet the fear in her tone was clear. Then with great effort she forced out 2 words in broken English. Her voice cracked, almost lost in the storm. They... coming. The man's heart skipped a beat. He looked at the door, then back at her. Who was coming? Why was she here? Before he could ask, her strength failed, and she collapsed again, her breathing uneven. The man sat frozen, staring at her strange, glowing face, the flickering lights, the storm outside. His quiet life had just ended. He didn't know it yet, but the moment he opened that door, his world had changed forever, and now he was not alone, not anymore. The storm outside slowly began to fade, but inside the house the silence was heavy. The man sat near the couch watching the strange woman who had collapsed at his doorstep. Her breathing was shallow, her lips dry. He had never seen anyone like her before. Her glowing eyes, her silver hair, her strange clothes. he whispered. To himself, "What are you?" But she didn't answer. Her body trembled and her stomach made a faint sound, a sound of hunger. The man stood up quickly. He went to the small kitchen and looked around. Bread, soup, some fruit, nothing special. Still, he warmed the soup and brought it to her. When he touched her shoulder gently, her eyes flickered open. Golden light shimmered in them again, weak, but still alive. She tried to speak, but her words were broken. He placed the bowl near her lips. "Eat," he said softly. For a moment, she only stared at him, unsure. Then slowly she lifted her hands. Her fingers were thin, almost delicate, but shaking with weakness. She tasted the soup, just a little at first, then more and more. It was as if she hadn't eaten for days. She finished the bowl quickly, almost desperately, and then looked at him with eyes full of something he could not describe. Gratitude, relief, fear. The man gave her bread next, and she ate, though carefully, as if every bite mattered. Finally, she leaned back, breathing harder but calmer. For the first time, her face seemed less pale. The man pulled a chair and sat near her. "Who are you?" he asked quietly. She looked at him, trying to form words. At first, only strange sounds came out, her own language. He shook his head. Then, she tried again, slowly, painfully. Naira, the man repeated it. Naira? She nodded weakly. That was her name. Her voice was rough, broken, but she tried to speak more. "You, safe?" The man frowned. "Safe? Yes, you are safe here. But safe from who?" Naira's eyes filled with fear. She pointed to the window toward the dark sky. Her voice shook. "They hunt." The man leaned back, confused and worried. Who hunted her? What had she escaped from? For a moment, silence filled the room again. The fire crackled softly. Naira wrapped herself in the blanket, but she still shivered. Her hands carried strange marks, like burns or chains once bound around her wrists. The man noticed them and asked gently, "Did they do this to you?" She lowered her gaze, her lips trembling. Slowly she nodded. Anger rose inside him. Whoever she was, whatever her story, she was not a threat. She was a victim. Someone had hurt her, and now she was running for her life. He gave her more water. She drank slowly, then whispered, "Family. No more. Home. No more." Her broken English was simple, but the sadness in her voice was heavy. She had lost everything. The man felt something stir inside him. Until this night, his life had been lonely, empty, without meaning. Now sitting beside this strange, fragile being, he felt something new. Responsibility. Naira looked at him suddenly, her golden eyes shining with weak light. She touched her chest, then pointed at him. "You. Good." He didn't know how to respond. But the way she said it, the way her voice softened, touched him. Before he could say anything more, a strange noise echoed outside. Not thunder, not wind, but something sharper. A faint hum, like a machine moving in the distance. Naira's eyes widened. She grabbed his arm tightly, fear spreading across her face. "They close." The man's heart pounded. He stood, quickly, and checked the window. The night was dark, but far away he saw a faint light moving. Too steady to be lightning, too strange to be a lantern. Naira whispered again. "Hide." He turned to her, unsure what to do. But he could see the terror in her eyes. Whoever was out there, they were searching for her. The man closed the curtains quickly and locked the door. Then he led her to the basement, where it was cold and dusty but hidden. She sat on an old blanket, trembling but silent. He crouched beside her. "You'll be safe here. I won't let them find you." She looked at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she whispered one word, soft, fragile but full of meaning. "Family." The man froze. Family. That was what she called him now. Something inside his chest tightened. She was not just a stranger anymore. She trusted him. She believed in him, and that trust would change everything. Above them, the strange humming sound grew louder. The hunters were near. But for now, in the basement of that small house, a bond had begun. A bond between a lonely human and a lost alien woman who had found safety at his door. The basement was dark and cold, filled with dust and old boxes. The man placed a small lantern on the floor, its dim light flickering across the walls. Naira sat against the corner, her silver hair falling over her face. Her golden eyes, still, glowed faintly in the shadows, making her look both fragile and otherworldly. For a long time, neither spoke. The man's heart was beating fast. He could still hear faint noises outside, like machines moving through the night. Whoever they were getting closer. Finally, he whispered, "Who are they? Why are they after you?" Naira lifted her head. Her lips trembled, her English broken. "Hunters, not human. They take my people." Her voice cracked on the last word. The man leaned closer, trying to understand. "Not human. Then who are they?" Naira closed her eyes, breathing slowly. When she opened them again, tears glistened in the golden light. "They use us. Make weapon." The man's chest tightened. So she was being hunted because of what she was, not what she had done. He thought about the marks on her wrists, the fear in her eyes. She was not lying, he could feel it. "Are they coming for you now?" he asked. She nodded quickly, her face pale. "They smell, track." The man swallowed hard. He was just a normal person. No weapons, no training. How could he protect her? And yet deep inside, he knew he couldn't send her away. He had made a choice the moment he opened his door. He stood, checked the locks again, and came back to her. "You'll be safe here, I'll make sure." Naira stared at him for a long moment. Then slowly she reached for his hand. Her touch was cold, trembling but filled with something he could not name. Trust. The lantern flickered. The basement felt smaller, the air heavier. Outside, the strange humming grew faint, then silent. For a while, everything was quiet again. The man let out a slow breath. Maybe they had passed by. Maybe the danger was gone for now. He looked back at Naira. "Tell me more. Please help me understand." She hesitated, then pulled the blanket tighter around her. Her voice was soft, almost like a child telling a secret. "My world. Far. Stars. Family gone. Hunters. Take many. I run. Alone. Long time." Her words were broken, but her meaning was clear. She had escaped from somewhere far beyond this world. She had lost everything: her home, her family, her people. The man felt a weight in his chest. He had been alone for years, but his loneliness was nothing compared to hers. She had lost not just one home, but an entire world. Naira's eyes grew heavy with exhaustion, but she kept speaking. "They find me. Always find. I know safe." The man shook his head firmly. "You're safe here. I promise." She looked at him, as if trying to decide whether to believe him. Then with a small nod, she whispered, "Trust." That single word struck him deeper than any others. Hours passed slowly in the basement. The storm outside weakened, but the man stayed awake, listening, watching. Every sound made his heart jump. He felt like an intruder in his own home, hiding from shadows that he couldn't see. At one point, Naira stirred in her sleep. Her body twitched, her breath quickened. She whispered in her own language, her voice full of fear. The man reached out gently, placing a hand on her shoulder. She calmed, though her golden eyes flickered open just for a second. When morning light finally touched the small window of the basement, the man felt relief. They had survived the night. For now. He led Naira upstairs, careful to check outside, before opening the door. The street looked quiet, empty, normal. No sign of hunters. But he knew they were still out there. Naira ate more food in silence. Her strength was returning, but her fear never left. Every sound outside made her flinch. Finally, she looked at him and whispered, "You keep me?" The man paused. Her words were simple but heavy. She was asking for something more than shelter. She was asking for protection, for trust, for family. He nodded slowly. "Yes, I'll keep you safe." Her lips curved into the faintest smile. A small smile, but the first he had seen. She whispered the same word again, almost like a vow. Family. The man felt something stir deep inside him. He had lived in silence for so long, but now in this strange and dangerous moment he wasn't alone anymore. He didn't know how he would fight what was coming. He didn't know if he even could. But one thing was certain. He would not let her go. Outside, hidden beyond the trees, a dark figure stood watching the house. Its eyes glowed faint red, scanning, searching. The hunters were not gone. They were waiting. The morning sun rose, but its light did little to calm the man's heart. He kept looking out the window, scanning the quiet street. Everything looked normal. Neighbors going to work, a child riding a bicycle, the postman passing by. Yet behind that normal scene, danger hid. He could feel it. Naira sat near the table, her golden eyes following him. She was calmer than last night, but her hand still shook when she held the cup of water. Her silver hair glistened in the morning light, reminding him again that she did not belong here. She was different. Too different. The man tried to smile at her, but his voice was serious. "We must be careful. They may still be near." Naira nodded slowly. Her English was improving little by little. "They never stop. Always follow." Her words made his stomach turn. How could they hide from something that never stopped? Later that afternoon, while he was repairing a loose fence outside, he noticed something unusual. A black van was parked at the far end of the street. Two men in dark suits stepped out. Their faces were hidden behind glasses and their movements were too stiff, too perfect. They knocked on the neighbor's door. The man froze. These were not ordinary men, he could sense it. From inside the house, Naira pressed her face against the window. When her eyes landed on the van, she whispered one word. "Hunters." The man's pulse raced. They had come. The suited figures moved from house to house, showing badges, asking questions. The neighbors looked uneasy but answered politely, not suspecting the truth. Each time a door opened, the hunters leaned forward slightly, sniffing the air, as if searching for a scent. The man hurried back inside and locked the door. His hands shook as he pulled Naira toward the basement again. "Quick, hide, don't make a sound." She obeyed, though her golden eyes filled with fear. Before going down, she whispered, "They smell me. Careful." He shut the basement door, his heart pounding so hard it hurt. Minutes later, there was a knock at his front door. Knock. Knock. It was slow, heavy, and full of cold patience. The man hesitated, every part of him wanting to stay silent. But the knocking came again, louder this time. Finally, he opened the door just a little. Two men stood there wearing black suits and dark glasses. Their smiles were thin and strange, like masks that didn't fit their faces. "Good afternoon, sir," one of them said in a flat voice. "We are looking for someone. Have you seen anything unusual in the area?" The man forced his voice to stay calm. "Unusual? No, nothing. Just a normal night and morning." The second man tilted his head slightly as if listening to something invisible. Then he sniffed the air, his nostrils flaring. A faint mechanical sound hummed from under his collar, and his eyes behind the glasses flickered red for a moment. The man gripped the door tightly. These were not government workers. These were the hunters Naira had spoken of. The first one leaned closer, If you do see anything unusual, a stranger perhaps, you must tell us. It is very important." The man nodded quickly. "Of course, I'll keep watch." The hunters stared at him for a long moment, their blank faces unreadable. Then without another word, they turned and walked back to the van. The man shut the door fast, his breath shaky. He leaned against the wall, sweat running down his forehead. From the basement came a soft sound. He rushed to open the door. Naira sat on the stairs, hugging herself tightly. "They know," she whispered. "They smell me." The man crouched beside her, his voice firm. "I won't let them take you. Not while you're here." Her golden eyes filled with tears. She reached out and touched his arm, trembling. "You protect me." "Why?" The man hesitated. Why was he doing this? He didn't fully understand himself. Maybe because he was tired of being alone. Maybe because she needed him. Or maybe because, deep down, he couldn't stand the thought of her being captured and hurt again. "Because you're family now," he said finally. Her lips trembled. She whispered the word again like a fragile promise. Family. That night, the van remained at the edge of the street. The hunters didn't leave. Their glowing eyes scanned the houses one by one. The man kept every light in his house dim. He stayed awake, guarding the door, listening to every sound. Naira slept lightly, whispering in her alien tongue, her body twitching with fear even in dreams. The man realized something important. This was no longer just about giving her shelter. The hunters would not stop. They would search until they found her, and if they did, they might not leave him alive either. For the first time, he understood the full weight of his choice. Protecting Naira meant war with something beyond human. Outside, the hunters stood silently by their van, watching, waiting. The hunt had truly begun. The days that followed felt both fragile and heavy. The man no longer lived his quiet, ordinary life. His every moment was shaped by the presence of the strange alien woman who now stayed under his roof. Naira had become part of his home, though danger lingered outside every window. The hunter's black van still appeared on the street some mornings, sometimes leaving, sometimes returning. They were patient. They were waiting. Inside, however, a new bond was growing. At first, Naira spoke little. Her words were broken, her English weak. But slowly she began to learn. She listened carefully whenever he spoke, repeating words softly to herself. "Cup," he would say, handing her water. "Cup," she echoed, her golden eyes shining with pride. "Bread. Bread." Each small success brought a faint smile to her face, and each smile made the man's heart warmer than he expected. He taught her, but she also taught him. At night, when the house was silent, she would point at the stars through the window. Her finger traced invisible lines across the sky. In her broken English, she whispered names, strange, beautiful names of constellations unknown to humans. "That one, Shiraketh," she said softly, pointing to a faint cluster. The man repeated it awkwardly. "Shira, Keth." Naira laughed, a soft, melodic laugh. Close. It was the first time he had heard her laugh. It was gentle but full of life, and it stirred something deep inside him. One evening, while sharing food, he noticed her staring at the fire with a distant look. He asked quietly, "What do you miss most?" Her eyes dimmed. "Home," she whispered. "Family. My little brother. He smiled always. Now, gone." Her voice cracked and tears rolled down her pale cheeks. The man's chest tightened. He had lost family too, long ago. But hearing her pain was different. It was not just grief. It was the loss of a whole world. Without thinking, he reached across the table and touched her hand. "You're not alone anymore." She looked at him with wide eyes, silent for a long time. Then she whispered, "Family." That word had become their bond. But outside, the danger never rested. One night, As the man stepped out to gather firewood, he noticed strange footprints in the mud near the edge of his yard. They were too long, too sharp to be human. His blood ran cold. The hunters were searching closer now. He returned inside quickly, trying not to show fear. Naira noticed anyway. "They near?" she asked. He nodded. "Yes, but we'll be ready." Naira's golden eyes flickered with faint light. She hesitated, then held out her hand. Slowly, her skin shimmered with energy. A soft, glowing aura formed around her palm, like liquid fire trapped in glass. The man stepped back in shock. "What? What is that?" She lowered her hand, her glow fading. "Power," she whispered. "My people. We born with it. Hunters. Want this." The man realized the truth. She was more than just a refugee. She was something rare, something powerful. And the hunters wanted to use her, to turn her into a weapon. "You must never show them," he said firmly. "Never, unless you have no choice." Naira nodded, though her eyes showed sadness. Her power was a part of her, yet now it was a secret she had to hide. That night she sat by the fire, her head resting lightly on his shoulder. The man felt her trembling, not from cold, but from fear. He wrapped a blanket around her gently. "You don't have to be afraid," he said. "As long as you're here, you have family." Her lips curved into a fragile smile. She whispered, "I trust you." For the first time in years, the man felt something fill the emptiness in his life. He was no longer just surviving day by day. He had a reason to fight, to protect, to keep moving forward. But as the bond between them deepened, so did the danger. Late one evening, the sound of engines echoed in the distance. The man rushed to the window. Far away, lights moved, slowly through the forest, more than one, dozens. Naira's eyes widened. "They come," she whispered, her voice trembling. The man clenched his fists. The hunters were no longer searching quietly. They were preparing for something bigger. He looked at Naira, at her glowing golden eyes, at the fear and hope in her face. She had called him family. She trusted him. And now he knew protecting her would cost him everything. The bond between them was strong, but the storm outside was stronger. The night of escape, or destruction, was coming soon. The night was too quiet. The man sat by the window, staring at the forest in the distance. The glowing lights he had seen earlier were still there, moving slowly between the trees. They weren't leaving. They were surrounding. Inside the house, Naira paced nervously. Her golden eyes glowed brighter than usual, a sure sign of fear. She whispered in her broken English, "They, many, too many." The man nodded grimly. He had no weapons, no soldiers, no plan, but he knew one thing. If they stayed, they would be found. The hunters were closing in and the house was no longer safe. He turned to Naira. "We can't stay here. We need to leave. Tonight." Her eyes widened. "Run? Where?" "Anywhere but here," he said firmly, "as long as it's away from them." Naira hesitated, then slowly nodded. She trusted him. That was enough. They packed quickly. The man grabbed a small bag with food, water, and a flashlight. Naira carried nothing. She had nothing left of her own world. The forest was their only chance. If they could move under its cover, maybe the hunters' machines wouldn't see them. The man opened the back door. The air was cold, sharp with the scent of pine. "Stay close," he whispered. Naira followed silently, her silver, hair glowing faintly under the moonlight. They slipped into the forest, their steps quiet but hurried. Every crack of a branch made the man's chest tighten. Every shadow looked alive. Behind them, faint hums filled the night, machines sweeping the area. Red beams of light flickered between the trees. The hunters were searching. Naira grabbed his arm suddenly. "Stop. They crouched behind a fallen log. Two tall figures in black moved across the path ahead, scanning with strange devices. Their faces were blank, their eyes glowing faint red. The man held his breath. His heart pounded so loudly he was sure they would hear it. The hunters paused, their heads turning slowly. One of them sniffed the air. Naira's hand shook as she whispered, "They smell me." The man's grip tightened on her hand. "Not tonight. We keep moving." When the hunters passed, they rushed deeper into the woods. The path grew darker, the trees thicker. The hum of machines grew louder all around them. Hours seemed to pass, though it was only minutes. Finally, they reached a small clearing. The man collapsed onto a rock, breathing hard. Naira knelt beside him, her face pale but determined. "They never stop," she whispered. "Always hunt, no safe." The man looked at her. Her golden eyes were trembling, yet inside them was fire. "Then we don't stop either," he said, "and we fight if we must, but I won't let them take you." Naira shook her head. "Fight. They kill you. I go. You live." The man grabbed her shoulders firmly. "No, don't ever say that. You're not alone anymore. We're in this together." For a moment her eyes softened. She whispered the word she had learned to love. Family. But the forest was no longer silent. A low hum echoed from above. The man looked up and froze. A black drone hovered in the sky, its red lights sweeping across the ground. It scanned the clearing with a cold metallic hum. "Run!" the man shouted. They dashed into the trees, the drone following. Red beams sliced through the forest, burning into the bark of trees. The night erupted with light and sound. Naira stumbled, but the man pulled her up. "Keep going." The hunters' voices echoed, metallic and cold. "Target near. Do not lose her." Naira's fear burst into something stronger, instinct. She stopped suddenly, turning toward the drone. Her golden eyes glowed brighter, her hands lifting. Energy shimmered around her palms, a radiant aura of fire and light. The man shouted, "Naira, no!" But it was too late. A burst of energy shot from her hands, striking the drone. It sparked, shuddered, and exploded in midair, raining pieces of metal into the forest. For a moment silence, then louder voices. More machines. The hunters had seen. They knew exactly where she was now. Naira collapsed to her knees, weak from the attack. The man rushed to her side, pulling her up. "We need to move now." Her voice trembled. They know. Power." "Yes," he said, his voice hard. "But they also know this. You're not alone anymore. I won't let them win." They ran again, deeper into the forest. The sound of engines closing in behind them. Branches whipped against their faces. Roots clawed at their feet, but they kept moving. Finally, they reached an old abandoned cabin hidden among the trees. The man kicked the door open, pulling Naira inside. It smelled of dust and rot, but it was shelter. He barred the door with broken wood, then turned to her. She was shaking, her light dimming. "You used your power," he said softly. She nodded weakly. "Only way. But now, they will come. More. Stronger." The man sat beside her, his breath still heavy. "Then we'll be ready. Whatever it takes." Naira leaned against him, her head resting on his shoulder. "You fight for me." "Why?" He didn't hesitate this time. "Because you're family, and family never runs alone." Her eyes closed, a faint smile forming despite the fear. Outside, the forest filled with the distant hum of machines. The hunters were coming, faster than ever. But inside that broken cabin, a man and an alien woman sat side by side, bound by a promise. The escape had only begun. The old cabin creaked in the night wind. Dust fell from the roof and the walls groaned with every gust. Inside, the man sat with his back against the door, holding a piece of wood like a weapon. His chest rose and fell quickly. He knew the hunters were close. Naira sat on the floor near the fire, her golden eyes glowing faintly. She looked weaker than before, her body trembling from the energy she had used to destroy the drone. Still, There was a strange calmness in her face. "They come soon," she whispered. The man nodded. "Yes, but we won't let them take you." Naira shook her head. "No. If I stay, you die. They never stop. You give me shelter, you give me food, you give me family, but now I must go." The man's jaw tightened. "No, you're not leaving. Not alone. If they want you, they'll have to go through me first." Her eyes softened. She reached out, touching his hand gently. "Why? Why fight for me? I'm not from here. Not human." The man looked at her, his eyes hard but kind. "Because family doesn't matter where you're from. It matters what you mean to each other. You mean everything now." Naira's lips trembled. A tear slid down her pale cheek. She whispered the word she had held on to since that first night. Family. The sound came then. Engines, heavy and loud. Red lights glowed through the cracks in the cabin walls. The hunters had arrived. The man stood, pulling Naira to her feet. "We can't run anymore. We make our stand here." The door shook under a heavy knock. Then a cold metallic voice echoed. "Surrender the fugitive. Resistance will end in death." The man gripped the wood tighter. "Not today," he muttered. Naira's golden eyes burned brighter, though her body shook. "If I use power again, I may not stop. Too strong. Dangerous." "Then don't hold back," the man said. "Better they fear you than capture you." The hunters broke the door. 3 tall figures stepped inside, their black suits shining, their eyes glowing red. Behind them, more shadows moved outside. The man swung the wooden beam with all his strength, striking the first hunter across the face. Sparks flew as its mask cracked. It wasn't human at all, but a machine, a twisted mix of flesh and metal. The second hunter grabbed him, throwing him against the wall. Pain shot through his body, but he forced himself up. "Naira, now!" he shouted. Naira raised her trembling hands. Golden light burst from her palms, flooding the cabin with brilliance. Energy rippled outward, slamming into the hunters. They staggered back, their bodies sparking, but more poured in. The man stood in front of her, shielding her with his body. He swung, punched, fought with everything he had. He was only human, but he refused to step aside. "Leave her alone," he roared. The hunters closed in. One raised a blade-like arm, aiming for the man's chest. In that moment, Naira screamed. Her body shone like a star. Her power exploded in a wave of light so bright it burned the hunters to ash. The cabin walls cracked, the windows shattered, and the forest outside glowed as if the sun itself had fallen. Then silence. When the light faded, the hunters were gone. Nothing but black dust remained. The man fell to his knees, coughing, his body aching. Naira collapsed beside him, her glow dimming. He caught her in his arms. "Naira, stay with me." Her golden eyes flickered, weak but alive. "I, too, strong, hard to control." He held her tighter. "It doesn't matter. You saved us. You saved me." She smiled faintly, though her voice trembled. "No, you saved me first. Door, food, safe, family." The man's throat tightened. He brushed her silver hair gently. "You'll never be alone again. Not while I'm here." Outside, the forest was silent. The hunters were gone, for now, but the man knew they would come again. Naira's power was too great, too rare. They would never stop wanting her. But he also knew something else. He would never stop protecting her. Together they stepped out of the broken cabin. The night sky stretched above them, full of stars. Naira raised her eyes to the heavens, whispering names of constellations from her lost world. The man followed, her gaze. For the first time in years, he didn't feel small under the stars. He felt connected, to her, to something greater. Naira took his hand, her grip weak but sure. She whispered softly, "My world, gone, but here, with you." New world. The man smiled, squeezing her hand. Then we built it together. They stood in the clearing, two figures against the endless night. One human, one alien, bound, not by blood but by choice. Family. The hunt was not over, the danger was not gone, but as long as they faced it together, they were no longer alone. And for the first time, Naira was not just a fugitive. She was home.